welcome to Virtual Concert Hall's live music channel. My name is Chris Au and I have with me the co-founder of Virtual Concert Halls, Anna Ospenskaya. Welcome.
Hello everyone. Thank you, Chris, for having me on this program.
And we will be your hosts for today's show. This is part 4 of the documentary of Beethoven Symphony No. 5, written and narrated by Lawrence Rapchak, created by New Media Productions Worldwide and Virtual Concert Halls, and produced by Architects of Music.
And this absolutely incredible collaboration has been possible because it is our collective passion to be connected to musicians and audiences in real-time musical performances and events from around the globe.
Another important element of symphonic architecture is the harmonic or key relations between the individual movements. And Beethoven's second movement is in the key of A flat major, which is definitely in the tonal realm of C minor. C minor, A flat major. In fact, these two notes, C and E flat, are common to both keys and triads. C minor, A flat. So there's an organic continuity between the first and second movements. Also fascinating are the subtle implications of certain keys for composers. Certain tonalities seem to evoke certain character in their music. And Beethoven's music in A flat major during this time tends to be very melodic, relaxed, and genial. The andante of his Pathétique sonata for piano, for example, this familiar music, which, like the Fifth Symphony's second movement, also follows a tempestuous C minor first movement. Then there's Beethoven's Opus 26 piano sonata in A flat, which begins not with an energetic allegro, but with a surprisingly laid-back theme and variations on this theme. And now in the Fifth Symphony, we have one of Beethoven's most unusual symphonic movements, also in A flat major, with a unique structure and a rather misleading tone to it, for lack of a better word. This is the spot for the traditional slow movement in a symphony, and in fact we often hear this second movement played much slower than Beethoven marked it, as if to force it to be something it's not. And that's part of its unique quality, that after the tempest of the first movement, Beethoven now writes what is essentially an intermezzo, beginning with a lyrical and rather breezy main theme marked andante con moto, or moving ahead and with motion, which clearly tells us that this is not ponderous music. So there's the main theme of the second movement. And like the A-flat piano sonata that I played, this second movement is also a theme and variations. It's also in a flowing triple meter, that is 3/8 notes to a bar, and they both include a florid variation of the theme. In the sonata, we have this. And both include a minor key variation. Again, in the sonata, and these were very standard devices for variations at the time. But that's where the similarities end. Beethoven is now, in his Fifth Symphony, writing a symphonic movement, not a start and stop set of variations, but music that grows and expands and develops, and whose basis is a set of variations. And what really distinguishes this unique second movement are two elements in addition to its genial theme. First, there is a recurring sense of mystery, that sort of shadowy netherworld so prominent in the first movement. And second, the appearance, 3 times, of a majestic march in C major, totally unexpected and seemingly at odds with the rest of the material. As I say, this is a very unusual movement in context and architecture. So we first hear that lovely cello theme, which begins with the 3 notes of an A-flat major triad. And this theme is based entirely on what we call a dotted rhythm. Dum, ba-bum, ba-bum. Technically, you put a dot on one of the 2 notes, and it makes it a little longer, and that makes the second note a little shorter, and it gives the tune a certain lilt or swagger. And for all its loveliness, this theme is remarkably bare. It's just the melody in unison, violas and cello, with only a solitary pizzicato bass line underneath. But together, the shape of the melody and the bass gives us enough that we can sort of fill in the harmonies on our own. Here's C major. And the theme ends with this same dotted rhythm on an A-flat triad, which is odd since it almost introduces a slight military fanfare element into this gentle music. And this cadence is now repeated twice, first by the full string section, and then, like a gentle echo, repeated by the woodwinds, which then continue like so, very gently, with a little cadence. And the strings respond now with a variation of this woodwind phrase, complete with the same cadence. It's like, okay, who's going to get the final word here with this cadence? Woodwinds or strings? But they end together. And thus ends the first theme.
Wow, it's just stunning, isn't it? How he composes such an amazing piece with all these different kind of elements all added up within the first 16 measures. It's really wonderful.
Absolutely. And this insight into the details,
Yeah.
even though it may seem like maybe very technical and who really cares, right? But it basically peels off the onion to the core principles which really make Beethoven such an incredible communicator and makes us all connect to his music. It didn't happen by just some mysterious strike of genius.
Yeah.
Beethoven really constructed that engagement and gave it a lot of thought. So my gratitude goes to Larry Rapchak for really unveiling how this is done by a genius composer. And for me as an educator, this is incredibly important because Beethoven was not born this kind of communicator. He created the skill through thought process and trial and error, of course.
Absolutely.
And how do we learn? We learn from the best. Let's learn from what went into his way of constructing the symphony, the theme. Now here we spend, 10, 15 minutes on looking at step by step, detail by detail, into how just the theme of the second movement is constructed and what kind
Absolutely.
of tensions and harmonic changes and all of that Beethoven put in there. And this is basically answering the very important question to all musicians and non-musicians too. Why this music is so magnificently captivating.
Yeah, and I love how, along with the musically captivating side of the video we watched, it's also the video editors who put in these colors and these different images of what these tonalities and these keys mean. And I think that's really, really amazing. Do you have a certain image or relationship with the key of A flat major? I mean, he talked about the Opus 26 sonata, he talked about the second movement of the Pathétique. And later on in the Romantic era, many pieces are written in the A flat major. And you as a sort of Bach specialist, you played a lot of these Prelude and Fugues probably, or pieces that are in A flat. So What's your view of this?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to underscore that I wasn't hands-on with this production of the film. I had to step out because people who were actually creating the film were so much better qualified to do this than me. But I was an observer at awe with the process, and I just was there for their discussions, and I remember very vividly the discussion about the colors and just like what you're bringing up. And there was a number of people involved, of course, in production of these films, and some more technical, some more, constructing the storyboards of it and deciding which images will go and so forth. And there was a heated discussion about the colors.
Okay.
And every step of the way, there was a lot of back and forth on deciding which colors should represent what part of the description of Larry Rapchak's story about this theme, especially that particular segment of the symphony. The whole film, of course, has a lot of play with the black and white and grayish color and different hues and different colors clashing and changing. And there was so much research the guys did on how people perceive the colors to be contrasting, which colors are clashing and creating dissonant impression and so forth. Yeah, there's a lot of play with the colors in those films. Absolutely. Now, to your question about the color of the A flat major, to me personally, A flat major or all of the keys of majors or minors and diminished and augmented, any harmonic compilation chord or harmony has a color. Okay, I'm very visual, so for me this has its own storyline of colors, but I can't say that I intuitively assign a particular color to particular key signature or scale or harmony, like as a set, like you would do if you were a painter with a palette.
No, of course
this is
not.
the red.
No,
this
no,
is,
yeah.
but for some people, for painters, that's really important. You need to know that red is red, right? And it's red no matter what you do with it. But for me, it's not like that. For me, the colors of the keys change their hue depending on the context. And for me, music exists in motion. It's never like a succession frames. For me, it's a very fluid thing. And for me, for instance, the beginning of the second movement, if I were thinking in colors, it would be probably some dark purple, but it would be influenced by the color of the ending of the first movement, and then as it progresses, it kind of takes over the hue of the previous harmony. And so same with it. So it's a more like the colors changing hues as the influence of the previous harmony wears off, and the next harmony takes more prominent presence and then gives way to the next harmonic change. So that's how I perceive the colors in music.
Oh, wonderful. And do you have particular emotional associations apart from the color? Because I think it's interesting to compare, if we talk about the key of A flat, certain composers like Chopin writing his third ballade in A flat major.
That's right.
Then you have late Beethoven sonata also in A flat major, and various composers using that key of A flat. Do you have certain thoughts on this and how that relates to you, or the feel or the kind of view of the composer within this key?
Yeah, it does. It's a little bit difficult to put a concrete finger on the emotional context of each.
Of course not. No.
Yeah, because my perception of the keys and harmonies, of course, is influenced by those composers. It's not purely like a newcomer. I know nothing about music, and I come in and I just have that first impression of it. My impression is far from first. And I would say, I'll give an example. I would say for me, C minor is just the pinnacle of representing drama. But I'm very well aware that part of that emotional connection with the C minor is definitely influenced by Beethoven, because that's how he used C minor throughout his entire creative life, including, all the way to the late
Yes, of
sonatas
course.
and all.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So maybe I'm preconditioned by people like Beethoven to perceive C minor as a key of drama, or maybe he used C minor to represent drama because it's a dramatic key. So it could be both. As for A flat major, for me, this is definitely key of pastoral.
Yeah, of
So,
course.
and very connected with nature and hues of nature, and more like thoughtful, reminiscent state of mind and mood, meditative, which doesn't quite is not quite in sync with what Chopin used A flat major in his ballade, because that
Yeah,
ballade has
yeah.
a lot of drama in it. However, when he in that middle section with a dramatic section and development in there, he actually ventures away from A flat
Yeah, he does.
major
He
quite a
does.
bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting as a musician to play many different pieces that are using this key of A flat and to explore sort of how they view this key. And it's always a little bit subtly different. I'm currently working on the Schubert F minor impromptu. And if you compare how he views F minor, it's a little similar to perhaps how Beethoven does it in maybe his Appassionata Sonata or something else in F minor. But there's subtleties, there's differences, and it's a different worldview perhaps of this idea of the key. And I think it's very important, particularly in these composers where the keys define a lot of the emotional center and the core of what this piece of music is about. I think they choose very carefully what key
Oh,
they
I'm
use.
sure you're absolutely right. They choose very carefully. And sometimes they choose the key to really be in great sync with what the piece is about. And sometimes they choose the key to not be so accommodating and to create that tension right there from the start, where the piece itself and its content and its story
Yeah.
may not quite be in sync. Like for me, at least, the Appassionata, which you just mentioned, is written in the key of F minor. But for me, it's a much more dramatic piece than F minor. F minor is a more lyrical key.
I see.
Uh,
Okay.
So, and I don't know if you would agree with it, but
That's the thing that's very subjective, right? That's what makes the music subjective. It's not so much, and maybe perhaps when you play a passionata or you play something in F minor, for you, you think more of that lyricism, maybe differently to if it were in C minor. And it's very interesting to see certain pieces, like Schubert has a sonata which he writes later on in E flat, but initially he conceived of it in D flat major, and he later on scrapped it and changed it to E flat. And I find that sort of thing very fascinating because in an era perhaps where keys don't mean as much, for them it meant so much. And the breakdown of tonality towards the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 20th century sort of maybe shifted the way we thought about tonalities. And so bringing it back to the video where we have these colors that are associated with certain keys, where we have different images and different associations later on in the next couple of parts. You have these aerial shots of German villages or Austrian villages and this pastoral, like you said. It's very clear that it's linked, that there's a sort of a connection between the key that the composer uses and the sort of emotional or imagery associations that come into it. So yeah.
Oh, definitely. Music evokes wide scope of imagination and imagery, and of course, it's one thing to perceive that as a receiver of what the composer wrote, and have your own form your own relationship with what the composer wrote and what key he used and all that. But it's a different thing to be on the other side of the fence in there and to be creating those pieces, because when you're creating, you can't have enormous global data to tell you which keys people perceive how.
No.
You sort of have to do it empirically. And that is to me an extraordinarily fascinating process to kind of work your way backwards from the final product, like Beethoven's Symphony. What Lawrence Rapchak is doing, he's taking the symphony and the very minimalist amount of data Beethoven left behind, with a few markings, like he's pointing out that andante con moto means moving forward ahead with motion, and this is not a lot of instruction there, right, to go by. And then he really goes back, analyzing and understanding all those connections in there in an extremely precise way, which reveals to me the answer to the question, how do you make that piece evoke my imagination and connect me so passionately and personally, and you, because you have a different, we all have different personal ways of perceiving those things. But how does a composer like Beethoven create a universally unifying piece where, with all those different hues and colors which we imagine, we still are all on the same page with the piece? We all love it.
Yeah. I love how Bernstein has this book where he talks about Beethoven and what makes him special. And one of the things that he discusses is, whilst he's not as, he's a revolution in many different aspects, but one of the things that's really remarkable about Beethoven is, as you say, there's all these different things that happen, but they all seem to be in the right place. That each note is so well conceived that it has to be that. And, he scratches off anything else that doesn't seem to fit quite right. And he just gets to this core of it. There's no other way this piece could have ended, or there's no other way in which this piece could have connected or progressed.
Yes.
And it's just fascinating. It really is.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And to continue the journey with Lawrence Rapchak, we do get a peek behind the curtain of why those notes and all this, what Beethoven put in the symphony, does feel like it's really in the rightest place possible.
I love how Larry talks about this. He describes Beethoven's twists and turns and surprises within the context of what really makes sense. And I want to give just a big shout out to Larry Rapchak for his amazing narration. And of course, we want to thank the team, yourself included as an observer in awe, as well as our collaborators and the teams in New Media Productions, Virtual Concert Halls, Architects of Music, and last but definitely not least, Larry Rapchak, putting all this together and making it so interesting. I'm learning a lot, and I'm fascinated with how he talks about music.
Absolutely. The journey of being on the inside of producing those films, not as a real creator, but observer of the creation, really changed my perception of creative process as connected to the film. It's just incredibly enriching. Yeah. And I really, really hope everyone who is watching is going to watch with attention and open mind to let these films change your perception, because it's it can enrich quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So another big thanks to our team, and we have a lot of other events and things going on in the virtual concert halls, as well as our sound specific competition, right?
Yes, please check out our websites, soundspecificcompetition.com, virtualconcerthalls.com, and many of our collaborators' websites, callorchestra.com and progressivemusicians.com. This whole production and this whole presence, bringing music to everyone in different forms, interviews and films and all of that, is a result of many people working together, which is, I'm extremely blessed and feel very grateful for all these collaborations, because musicians sometimes are notorious for being known to be very strong-headed and not being able to collaborate very well. No, well, we are dismantling this myth. We're working with dozens and dozens of very bullheaded, opinionated musicians who happen to be able to connect with each other, work together, and produce these kinds of things.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're spearheading this for us and making it all known for everybody that we can collaborate and make the music world a better place. And with that, for more twists and turns, more surprises by Beethoven, narrated and documented by Larry Rapchak, please check us out for part 5 of our Beethoven 5 documentary series. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye now.
No matter where you are or who you are, music connects us all. We started with a dream, but now we are paving the future. Welcome to the Sound Expressiva Global Competition. Fully virtual, yet bringing musicians closer together than ever before, now on a global scale. True live, inclusivity, diversity, connection, community, an extraordinary array of judges. Get noticed by companies all over the world. Prizes, scholarships, performance opportunities. Apply to be a part of the most exciting congregation of artists like nothing you've ever seen before. We guarantee quality and leave no musician behind. We can't wait to hear you on the virtual stage.